After my last episode on the problem with modern dating, one question stayed with me because I couldn't really resolve it. And that's the role of money in relationships. Money seems to be the dating criterion that upsets people most. And I wondered why. At the same time, I wasn't completely sure about my own position because, on the one hand, I would be the first to say that men and women should have equal roles and responsibilities in a relationship. But on the other hand, it's also true that I personally preferred if the man pays for dinner when we go out. So I wanted to explore this topic a bit further. What do people actually think about money in relationships? Where does the discomfort come from? And what is my own position after looking at it a bit more closely? And hopefully give you some helpful insights along the way. The reason I'm singling out money is that it seems to trigger a different reaction from almost every other dating criterion. Most people accept that looks matter, humor matters, education, intelligence, lifestyle, and similar things matter too. But when someone says that money matters, the sentiment changes. It becomes a moral judgment. A woman who cares too openly about a man's money becomes a gold digger. A man who uses money to make himself more attractive becomes someone who is buying access to sex. And the relationship itself is treated as somehow less real and less respectable. But why? Why does money make relationships feel dirty? And is that judgment actually justified? That's what I want to talk about today. Before I dive into the reality in the West today, I think it's important to point out that money as a dating criterion is not a universal taboo. In the past, marriages in the West were openly economic and tied to property and family strategy. And in many non Western societies, the economic side of marriage is still much more openly acknowledged. In the West, this changed over the last 100 to 200 years. Romantic love, whatever that means exactly, became the main moral language of relationships, while money was treated as cold and public. I'm not sure there's one single reason for this. It's probably a mix of things. The rise of romanticism, industrialization, which split the private life from public life because people started working outside of the home, a rise in anti capitalism, female emancipation, religious ideas about purity, and maybe also modern ideas about authenticity. I don't want to dive into historical reasons for this development here, but I want to point out that money as a taboo in Western dating is relatively recent. And the strange thing is that people still care about money. It's just become a social taboo to care too much about it or admit it openly. But the data on actual preferences is quite clear. We know from survey data that many people do find money important. One study found that 71% of American adults say it's very important for a man to be able to support a family financially in order to be a good husband or partner. For women, that figure is much lower at 32%. Another survey found that 74% of singles said financial stability has become one of the most attractive traits in dating. The same survey also found that money has become a major source of red flags and deal breakers. So people clearly care about money. The taboo seems to be naming it too explicitly. It is acceptable to say, I want stability or I want someone ambitious. But if someone says, I want someone with money, the moral reaction is different, even if the underlying preference is the same. The first reason is a general feeling of fakeness when money is involved. If someone is with you because of your character, your looks, your mind, or your habits, it feels like they love you as a person. But if someone is with you because of your money, it feels different. Money seems less personal. It is attached to you, but it's not identical with you. It can also be measured, directly compared, and easily replaced. So the fear is they love me for this thing attached to me, not me as a person. This also applies to friendships. Think of the friend who always disappears when the bill comes. But when I look at the argument more closely, I do not think the perception that money is uniquely shallow or immoral really holds up. Many dating criteria are shallow, or at least partly shallow. Physical attractiveness, such as height, family background, and intelligence, are heavily shaped by genetics and luck. They're not exactly achievements. Money can also come from lack of family background, but it can also reflect agency. It can reflect how disciplined, competent, or ambitious someone is. And it can show whether someone is able to create stability. And in addition, financial standing is one of the most rational criteria because it has a very concrete impact on someone's life. So it is not obvious why money should rank below other criteria in terms of respectability. If someone is attracted to beauty, we may call that shallow, but we usually do not treat it as morally corrupt. If someone wants a partner with a good education, similar values, or a certain lifestyle, we usually treat that as compatibility. But money is often treated differently. It is treated as if it contaminates the whole relationship. And while I share the same instinctive judgment, probably because of my upbringing with its perception, that seems inconsistent. Another reason money feels different is that it seems so replaceable. It can be measured very easily. So if someone with more money appears, the fear is that your partner will leave you to upgrade. But this is not unique to money. The same applies to almost every other criterion. Beauty can be upgraded. So can humor, status, chemistry, or emotional comfort. People leave partners all the time because someone else scores better on the criteria that matter to them. So money is not uniquely replaceable. I think the main difference is that it is more measurable. And I think this is what makes money so uncomfortable. It turns a vague preference into something visible. And this brings me to a bigger point. I think people associate money with a material transaction because that's how we normally use it. So when money enters a relationship, the fear is that one person is buying the other person like a product. And that feels wrong because we like to believe that human connection is not a transaction. We like to think it's something more spiritual or emotional. But I do not think that holds up. All relationships involve some form of transaction, not only business relationships, romantic relationships and friendships too. People give and get something from each other. They can be emotional, practical, sexual, social, or material. And we know this because people feel used when they give much more than they get back. That feeling only makes sense if we already expect some kind of fair exchange. The same applies to money. Even in friendship, money is part of the relationship. If one friend never pays the bill, everyone notices. There is usually an expectation that people split, take turns, or if they can't, then compensate in other ways. Again, the expectation is usually implied, it is not spoken out loud. And I think this is where the discomfort appears. Not when money is part of the exchange, but when money becomes explicit. The clearest example of this discomfort is prostitution. This example matters because it makes the transaction impossible to hide. And I think that is exactly why the moral reaction is so strong. There are valid reasons to oppose prostitution on rational grounds, such as the risk of coercion or trafficking. But if we remove all these factors and just look at the genuinely voluntary adult transaction of sex against money, people still have strong reactions. Globally, only a small minority say prostitution is justifiable. From 19% in France at the high end of the country comparison, down to 1% in Egypt, Indonesia, and South Korea. And this is not just because people reject casual sex in general. In the same survey comparison, casual sex is viewed as justifiable by much higher shares in many countries. For example, 42% in the UK, 30% in the US, 39% in Sweden, and 48% in Australia. So the issue is not sex alone. The stronger discomfort appears when sex becomes an explicit money transaction. So this is not about casual sex being immoral, but about the money being the reason to have sex. The difference is the visible transaction, and that gets a different judgment. My conclusion from all of this is that money itself is not the problem. It is not fundamentally different from other dating criteria. The difference is that it is more explicit, more measurable, and more associated with business. I'm not sure exactly why this has made a taboo, but I think we should probably stop treating it that way. All relationships include some kind of transaction. It is just usually not made explicit. Most people would never say, "You're funny, I'm smart, let's make a deal." Or, "I'm decisive, you're caring, let's date." But in a way, that's what relationships are. People bring different things to each other. And I don't see why money should be excluded from that, just because it is also used in a business context. The real red line, I think, is this honesty. If someone pretends to like your character, but actually just wants your money. But again, this is not unique to money. You can deceive someone for all kinds of reasons. Status, sex, citizenship, convenience. The issue is not the thing you want. The issue is pretending you do not want it. And if we became a bit more honest about money as one of the many dating criteria, maybe the lying would stop too.